Along the Hudson River in New York, Hyde Park's Vanderbilt mansion stands as a striking symbol of Gilded Age opulence. Built between 1896 and 1898 at a cost of $660,000, a price that excludes furniture and fixtures, this 45,000 square foot Beaux-Arts mansion boasts 54 rooms across 4 floors, which served as the country retreat for Frederick William Vanderbilt and his wife Louise during the fall and spring seasons. The mansion's exterior, clad in Indiana limestone, features stately porticos extending from its sides, while ornate carvings of lion heads and intricate garlands embellish its facade, setting the tone for the lavish interiors within. Every home, every building, every forgotten corner of land has a story. Some lost to time, some whispered through generations, and others waiting to be uncovered. Hi, I'm Billy from BMH Preservation, and if you're a fan of history and exploration, then you're in the right place. Please subscribe and turn on post notifications to join us as we dive deep into the hidden histories of the world's most fascinating properties. From grand estates with scandalous past, to humble homes that once bore witness to extraordinary events. Join us as we go on site and see these homes in person. Frederick, grandson of Cornelius Commodore Vanderbilt and son of William Henry Vanderbilt, was born into one of the wealthiest families in America. With his fortune, he acquired an impressive portfolio of estates. However, it was a visit to their elite friends, Ogden and Ruth Livingston Mills, at their mansion down the street, which I recently toured with my partner Sean, and we filmed a video on site about its fascinating history, which I'll link below. But it was during that visit which led Frederick and Louise to fall in love with the east bank of the Hudson River. The area's natural beauty, coupled with the convenience of their own railroad car, provided quick access to New York City and sealed their decision to build in Hyde Park. This land had already been renowned for its lush landscape, appealing to Frederick's deep love of nature. The estate's previous owners included Dr. Samuel Bard, who was George Washington's physician during the American Revolution. Afterwards, the land was purchased by esteemed horticulturalists David Hossack and the Langdon family, who were descendants of John Jacob Astor. Initially, the Vanderbilts planned to enlarge and renovate the original Langdon house on the property. However, upon inspection, the structure was deemed too weak to support an additional third floor, leading to its complete demolition. For the new construction, Frederick enlisted the renowned architectural firm McKeed, Mead & White, while 4 separate prestigious decorating firms worked simultaneously under their supervision. The new mansion's architectural lines were inspired by the original 1847 Langdon estate, honoring its classical roots. When completed, the New York Times praised the 600-acre estate as, quote, the finest place on the Hudson between New York and Albany. Hey guys, it's Billy, and we're on site today at Hyde Park at the former residence of Frederick and Louise Vanderbilt, and we're about to go inside. Upon stepping inside, guests are greeted by an elliptical hall centered around a grand fireplace adorned with a 17th century Medici crest and 2 salvaged European statues. During the Vanderbilts' time, this space was filled with tall palms, animal skin rugs, and plush couches so comfortable that the butler recalled guests often dozed off by the fire. Above, a skylight floods the room with natural light, connecting it visually to the second floor. To the left of the entrance is Frederick's office, which was closed to visitors while I was on site. However, it connects to his richly appointed den, a space where he and his male guests would retire after dinner to smoke and drink. Although, when no guests were present, Louise would often join him in this room, and the den's dramatic Gothic ambiance is defined by vaulted ceilings, mahogany paneled walls, and ornate carvings of cherubs and animals. Despite the presence of taxidermy and firearms, these were purely decorative, as Frederick himself was not a hunter and prohibited hunting on his property. A short corridor leads from the den to the massive formal living room, which spans the entire south end of the first floor. A blend of Renaissance furnishings and Louis XV seating fills the space, framed by walnut paneling, marble fireplaces, and coffered ceilings adorned with elaborate plasterwork. Despite its name, the Vanderbilts primarily used this room for entertainment. Louise and her female guests often gathered here for tea, coffee, or liqueur, while the men would linger behind in the dining room to smoke. Once finished, they would rejoin the ladies for music, bridge, or charades. And on Saturday nights, while entertaining, dancing was an expected tradition. Adjacent to the living room is the reception room, styled after an 18th century French salon. This design was common among the Vanderbilts. Frederick's sister-in-law Alva had a Regency salon at her Fifth Avenue mansion, and Mrs. William Henry Vanderbilt had a similar space. However, none rivaled Cornelius's music room, which featured authentic oak paneling salvaged from an old French chateau. According to the Vanderbilt's butler, Alfred Martin, this room was rarely used by Louise, and often she only retreated here when she sought solitude, with the door closed serving as a clear signal that she did not want to be disturbed. Through a symmetrical corridor lies the grand dining room, where walnut paneling and an ornate coffered ceiling salvaged from a 17th century Italian palazzo create a stately atmosphere. The room's two fireplaces were imported from Paris and Florence, one from the 16th century, depicting scenes from the Judgment of Paris, and the other featuring the Medici coat of arms. Beneath the table lies a remarkable 300-plus-year-old Parisian carpet measuring 20 by 40 feet, one of the largest Islamic carpets in existence and considered the most valuable object in the house. Below, in the basement, meals were prepared in the kitchen and transported upstairs by a dumbwaiter. And regardless of the season, Louise personally selected flowers from their gardens to adorn the dining room table. To the left of the dining room is the butler's pantry and servant's staircase. As was customary during the Gilded Age, most of the staff remained out of sight unless summoned. In 1936, when Frederick Vanderbilt was in his 80s, an Otis elevator was installed to spare him the effort of ascending the grand staircase, a magnificent structure with 39 steps rising 22 feet. The landings were deliberately designed to ensure that the Vanderbilts and their esteemed guests could glide effortlessly up and down, particularly when Frederick and Louise made their grand entrances into the Elliptical Hall. On the way up the stairs, you'll see the original statues that have remained in their position to this day. At the top of the staircase lie the private suites of Mr. and Mrs. Vanderbilt. Louise's bedroom echoes the Louis XV style, much like the reception room downstairs. Her bed's railing is directly inspired by those found in Royal European chambers. And the room features 15 painted vignettes acquired by British art dealer Joseph Duveen, and are framed in exquisite gilded detailing. And alongside her bedroom was her dressing room and boudoir. Compared to Frederick's room, which features exotic wood paneling and vibrant wallpaper that I personally love. Although the focal point of the space is a set of decorative ceiling beams that converge to an ornate corbel. The remaining bedrooms on this floor each follow a distinct color theme. There's a red, large, and small room, as well as a green, blue, and mauve room that create a striking contrast throughout the mansion. While these guest rooms provided luxury for visitors, the third floor, which remains closed to the public, housed 5 additional guest bedrooms. These rooms, of course, were notably separated from the servants' hall and their living quarters, reinforcing again the social hierarchy of the era. Despite its impressive appearance, Hyde Park did not initially meet the Vanderbilts' expectations. Perhaps the challenge stemmed from hiring four separate decorating firms, each with its own artistic vision and, I'm sure, their own ego. Rather than returning to the original architects McKean, Mead, and White, the Vanderbilts enlisted renowned architect Whitney Warren. At the time, Warren had just completed the redesign of the New York Yacht Club and was in the midst of his most famous project, Grand Central Terminal. By 1905, Warren had begun a series of architectural modifications to refine the mansion's first and second floors, as well as the living room. One of his most significant changes was the removal of a daylight that originally spanned the opening between the two floors. He also reshaped this opening, transforming it from a rounded rectangle into an elongated octagon. The additional laylight above the second floor was also replaced with a flat frosted glass laylight similar to what visitors see today. Originally, a wooden balustrade framed the second floor opening, but Warren replaced it with a cast stone balustrade featuring a flat-topped rail. This not only provided a sturdier structure, but also allowed plants to be placed along the railing, adding an element of natural beauty. Beyond structural changes, Warren made several aesthetic refinements. In the living room, he widened the two chimney breasts and added ornamental plaster above the pieces. And the ceiling mural, originally painted, was toned down in 1899, but Warren ultimately removed it altogether in 1906. A similar fate befell the mural in the reception room, which the Vanderbilts disliked so much that they had it painted over, although in 1962, restoration efforts were made to carefully uncover the original artwork that was beneath the layers of paint. For those fascinated by historic preservation, the Vanderbilt Mansion National Historic Site Historic Structure Report was released online in 2018. I'll provide a link of it below, and it really does provide a wealth of information and detail to give you a deeper dive on the analysis of the house and how it was actually restored. Beneath the opulence of the main floors above, the basement functioned as the estate's nerve center, and it housed everything from the ice room, laundry room, ironing room, wine cellar, and various storage spaces, as well as 3 modest butler rooms. Maintaining this mansion in its prime required a staff of approximately 60 people working year-round. The estate also boasted its own hydroelectrical power plant, which generated electricity and powered a central heating system, which was cutting-edge technology for its time. Meanwhile, a fully operational farm on the property ensured that the Vanderbilts had a steady supply of fresh meat, dairy, and flowers. Things did not stop at this house alone. Just a short stroll from the main house stands the Pavilion, a structure originally intended as a guest house for male visitors, because clearly during this time, they did not want to have single men under the same roof as single women. Also, the Vanderbilts themselves took up residence in this space, using it as their temporary home while overseeing the construction of their main estate. Today, the Pavilion has taken on a new role, serving as the visitor center. And now we're going to make our way to my favorite part of the estate, which was the gardens. The estate's gardens, inspired by classical Renaissance antiquity, reflect the grand traditions of European landscape design. Modeled after formal Italian gardens, they became an evolving masterpiece, shaped by the hands of 4 prominent landscape architects between 1901 and 1934. Their efforts resulted in a harmonious complex of gardens featuring over 2,000 varieties of rose bushes. Among the sprawling trellises and beautiful pergolas, my favorite part of the garden is the pool house and lower pergola that features a curved wall to house an Italian-style pool that acts as the main focal point of the garden, and when filled, the water would capture the reflection of the beautiful Italian white marble statue who still stands there today at the edge of the water. I can't help but imagine how beautiful this space must look at night specifically. Imagine seeing the moonlight reflecting on the water with that statue right ahead as the main focal point with a light behind it. Absolutely stunning. I would love to come back on site and see this property in full bloom during peak season. Tragically, in 1926, Louise Vanderbilt suddenly passed away, and this caused a profound shift in Frederick's life. Already reserved by nature, he became even more reclusive and decided to retreat to the third floor of the mansion, where he chose to live among the servants rather than occupy the grander rooms below. In the end, it's not hard to understand why he withdrew to this estate in his final years. Despite owning homes in New York City, Bar Harbor, Newport, and in the Adirondacks, Hyde Park remained his sanctuary. It was the only place where he could fully immerse himself in his passion for horticulture. And it was here that, among the towering trees and manicured gardens, that he found his greatest joy. Though he was born into privilege, Frederick was the first Vanderbilt to graduate from college. Unlike many of his relatives who squandered their inheritance, with the $10 million fortune he inherited at the age of 29, he grew it to an astonishing $70 million by the time of his death in 1938. But for all his wealth, what he valued most was not money, but the beauty he cultivated, transforming a once neglected estate into a masterpiece of nature. With no children of his own, Frederick left Hyde Park and $10 million to his wife's niece, Margaret Van Allen. However, Margaret had no intention of moving into the estate since she already owned her own mansion. Can't relate to that. But she attempted to sell Hyde Park, first listing it for $350,000, before then reducing it to $250,000. But in the shadow of the Great Depression and with World War II looming, there was no buyers for the grand property. It was at this point that President Franklin D. Roosevelt, whose own home stood nearby, stepped in. Recognizing its historical significance, he persuaded Margaret to donate the mansion and 211 acres of land to the National Park Service. Since 1940, Hyde Park has remained open to the public, preserved nearly exactly as Frederick and Louise left it. Walking its halls today, it feels as if time has stood still, waiting for its former owners to return for yet another season. Between 1941 and 1943, however, the mansion took on an unexpected role. Roosevelt's Secret Service operated from the basement and third-floor servants' quarters, while members of the president's personal staff and even some of his friends were allowed to sleep in the Vanderbilt's own bedrooms, the thought of which seems kind of inappropriate if you ask me, strangely intrusive, but also destructive to a home of such significance. Although I am so glad to see that this property was preserved, and I know that Frederick would be so pleased to see that his retreat and slice of paradise is continuing to be enjoyed by the public in a respectful way. I'd like to thank you very much for taking the time to join us on this journey throughout Hyde Park. And if you've enjoyed this exploration, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I know I have to do the YouTuber thing, so you don't miss out on our next deep dive into another fascinating historic estate. I'd also love to hear from you and see what was your favorite room of the house. I know for me, my favorite had to be probably the grand entrance hall. I really enjoyed that opening, as well as the gardens outside. I'm a huge plant lover, so that's always my main thing. But I'd also like to ask if any of you have any recommendations for historic properties to visit within the US, specifically in the New England area. If you have any, please let me know. I'm currently putting together a checklist of must-see estates for new videos. So if you have any suggestions, please let me know, and I look forward to our next adventure together. All right, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you're having a great day.